Well, today I'd like to introduce you to a really good friend of mine, Maxine Hancock, who is here with us at St. Andrews for a Tim Talk. Maxine, I met her in a colleague covenant group in Nova Scotia and learned there of her great Christian faith and wisdom. And actually, Maxine is an Albertan. She was born in Calgary. So we're glad to have her with us today. She has had quite a life, and I'd love to tell you more about all of the details of that at another time. But let's just say that she is a well-known writer and broadcaster and speaker, and has been a professor at Regent College for a dozen years, and now makes her home in Vermilion here in Alberta. And it's great to still be in touch. And today we welcome you, Maxine, to St. Andrews and to this Tim Talk.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, this summer, as all of you know, we've been looking at joy, and you know, in this waning pandemic, we hope things are moving in a direction of greater freedoms, and we've been trying to nurture and encourage greater joy in our midst. And so we're trying to do that theologically and understanding how joy is part of our Christian faith and expression. And today I'm really happy to welcome Maxine to talk about how Christianity is a unique expression of joy, a unique religion of joy, but particularly how that joy is possible in the midst of grief and loss, which is something that Maxine has known personally herself. And so today, Maxine, I'd like to start there to talk about how you think joy is possible in the midst of grief and loss.
Well, Tim, there's a lot to think about. I do agree with you that Christianity is marked by joy when it is properly understood. And that joy comes from, the reason it's unique is because it doesn't come from our circumstances. It comes from a deep commitment to the deep life of Christ lived in us by the Holy Spirit. And so there's a sense in which, to some degree, the nature of Christian joy is to be independent of our circumstances. But on the other hand, we experience it through our fallible bodies and our minds and our circumstances. So it's not that the joy is caused by our circumstances, but it is filtered through, or it does come, is expressed in and through our circumstances. And just for your listeners, I went through my first and second year of grief for my husband after 57 years of loving and wonderful marriage. I lost him in August of 2019. And so COVID has coincided for me in the deepest grief walk I have had to experience. And so it's been, for me, interesting would be the small word. Mm-hmm. It has been illuminating. It has been important for me to discover that deep source of grief. And the way that deep source of joy in the midst of grief. And the way I think of it is, for Southern Albertans, you will all know where Frank Slide is in the Rocky Mountains. Right. And you'll know, you've seen that amazing slide of rocks down that rock face. And as once when I was there, and other times when I've seen rock slides in the mountains, I've seen that whole streams are cut off by those rock slides. They come down, and the streams that had been flowing along are literally covered. But if you look carefully, in a little while, after some time after those rock slides, you'll see a little bit of water on the rock face. You'll see that there's a little bit of stream beginning to come up and emerge through that rock and begin to trickle again. And in time, there will be streams again. So that's how I think about it. I think there are things in our lives that are so overwhelming that for a little while, those streams that are underneath it all seem to be cut off. But if we wait and rest in the Lord on those matters and be honest, I think the danger is thinking I should be happy anyhow, and somehow trying to work up a happiness that is false, rather than waiting for the joy that is deep and real to be realized again in your life. And one of the things about joy in the Christian life is that it's very closely related to peace on the one hand. So you might feel peace before you feel joy.
Right.
And that,
Right.
but that's okay. Peace is a good resting place while the joy finds its way through the rock again. Um, and and then you also, of course, have hope. And hope feeds the stream that will come back up through that rock as you wait on it. And so I think just knowing that joy is sourced so much deeper than the deepest place you have to go, and that it will, as you trust the Lord and as you focus on the hope that He has given us in life and in death of His presence and is called into His presence, then that joy just begins to seep up through and come. Sometimes literally as water on the rock face, but later more and more a stream of joy again. And so I would just say that's been my experience, and then I'm happy to talk about some of the ways that gets fed in my life. But that doesn't mean that that the last 2 years haven't been tough, but there has been hope, and that has led to peace, and in time, joy, and the return of joy.
Right. I think you've given us a powerful image. I was really amazed and almost in awe of driving through Frank the first time that I went through and saw the implications of that whole rock face coming down. And then also, seeing the trees that are gradually growing up through. It takes time. And so I think you've reminded us that considering the kind of period that we've been through, that there are no quick and easy answers in this. This is something that we need to stick at. And so even here at St. Andrews, having a summer of joy doesn't mean that suddenly in September, we're going to emerge into fall and be fully joyful or have complete joy then, because this is going to be something that's going to take time. And I think you're giving us a sense of that, but you're also pointing us to the source, which I really appreciate. And I'd love to hear more of what you're thinking about in terms of how we help to cultivate and allow the Spirit to bring that sort of stabilizing joy that you're talking about.
Well, I would say that the two things that I really hung on to, that I really, apart from the word and this deep source, but in my everyday life, was gratitude and attentiveness. So I think that for me, one of the most important things was to recognize every day that there was much to be grateful for. And so journaling has been very important to me. I journal every morning, and it's in the morning that I'm usually too tired at night, or certainly was during the grieving, the deep grief times, too tired to try to even remember what the day had been. I just would fall into bed. But in the morning, sometimes in the wee morning hours, I would reflect on the day that had passed, and I would be grateful. I would give thanks, and some of that was giving thanks for Cam and for the years we'd had together. Some of it was for the way the Lord took him home to Himself. Those were deep, deep gratitudes. But there was also gratitude for the visit from my son, who drops in almost every day, and the fact that we had gotten moved back close to family. Thankful for those are the big ones. And then so many lovely little things to be thankful for, and that requires attentiveness. And I think learning to be attentive to the things that delight is something that delights God's heart. So for me, it can be a bird. It can be my flowers in my window boxes. It can be a smile. It can see. I get enormous joy out of seeing children, and sometimes I get to interact with them, but even just seeing them with their parents. And one of the joys of COVID was that families got out and biked together and walked together, and you saw them as family groups, not as in all their separate clubs and activities, but together. And I would just get delight out of watching children interact with their parents. And I have a few little children in my life that give me enormous joy. So I would say, apart from the great foundational things, And the big gratitudes, there's that gratitude every day, cultivating an awareness of how God brought delight into your life that day.
Mhm.
So children, flowers, oh, if you ever get personal mail in the mailbox, I mean, there's joy. And that happens
Absolutely.
once in a while. uh,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So a good book, so many sources. And I get huge delight out of just the fact that there's morning and that you get to start again. Ooh, here it is. Here, Lord, here's a morning that your mercies new every morning. So I think that's a habit of life. And I think it's cultivated by the practice of living gratefully in general, but then to actually notice
Yeah,
big and little things for which you can give thanks. And for that reason, one of my sources of joy renewal is weekly worship. I can't do without it because that helps me remember what the source of joy is and the source of all that I'm grateful for. So I've got to be there.
absolutely. And I'll have to say that as a preacher, it renews my joy having in-person worshipers again and having enough of them that we sense the life of the community around us and really sense Jesus' joy in the midst of our community when we're together.
Yeah, we need that for sure. So those are some of the things I've learned in this so long life, Tim.
Well, it's been such a gift to have you with us today, even for this short time, Maxine. And may God continue to bless you in the ministry that you still have and the ways that you help to grow faith in people around you, whether it's through your speaking or your writing or your prayers. We're so grateful for you. Thank you so much, Maxine.
Well, thank you, Tim. It's been a great pleasure. Lord bless you and St. Andrews as well.
Thank you.